Aloha everyone, and thank you all for being here today. My name is Calvin Bulan, and I will be talking about Hawaii's Play Solution, framework for tackling placelessness and vandalism in playground design for communities of Hawaii. In my presentation today, I will introduce the problem that I tackled in my thesis, then discuss the research I did, looking at play in the playground, sense of place, vandalism, and playground precedent studies, then discuss the product of my thesis, which is a framework, and conclude with a playground evaluation and implications. First off, the problem. Hawaii is home to a diverse amount of cultures, people, and history. However, Hawaii today is at risk of mass culture, gentrification, urban sprawl, and homogenization. This is trickling down into our amenities, such as our public playgrounds, and identity is stripped away in our communities. Playgrounds are heavily vandalized and become unsafe environments. Short-term solutions are implemented and create unstimulating environments and surveillance culture. When playgrounds have a lack of identity or placelessness, they become vandalized. This leads to them being underutilized and undervalued, with increased maintenance and quick solutions. Eventually, this leads to typical expensive renovations that create a vicious cycle. Ultimately, the playground is removed altogether, and it becomes a loss for the children and the community. Placelessness and vandalism is where thoughtful design becomes important. Play in the playground is often overlooked and taken for granted. What we don't realize is that it is extremely important for our children's mental health and cognitive development, their physical health and motor skills, and their social skill development. There are 9 different types of play that facilitate certain development attributes. There is solitary, rough, risky, constructive, pretend, cooperative, sensory, parallel, and active play. For example, risky play helps a child build their confidence and resiliency, their sense of self, and their sense of wonder, to name a few. Looking at new aspects I've discovered during my research, I found that playground typologies can be categorized into 2 tiers. For the first tier, I looked at material and layout of the playground, categorizing them as either artificial, mainly using man-made elements, or natural, mainly using elements from nature. For the second tier, I looked at what the playground uses to facilitate play, categorizing them as either apparatus, specific function or usage, or interpretive, which can be used in multiple ways. I also found that there's a plethora of playground equipment, which, after looking at many playground equipment and form, can be distilled into the play verbs they embody. There is gathering, jumping, running or walking, sliding, swinging, climbing, crawling, sitting or standing, riding, hiding, spinning, observing or thinking, and constructing. Instead of thinking of these specific playground equipment or form, we can look at the playgrounds as the verbs and types of play they integrate. Along with basic elements I researched, this will set the basis for my framework. Sense of place is the experience of a place through activity, image, and form shared by the people and their environment. It adds value and satisfaction, it instills pride and attachment, and it brings a sense of responsibility and stewardship. It also unites the community. Placelessness is the opposite, and it occurs when there is an uncritical acceptance of mass value and casual replacement of the diverse and significant places of the world with anonymous spaces and exchangeable environments. Designing for sense of place can be looked at in 3 aspects: the form, the place's physical setting; the activities, the place's activities, situations, and events; and the image, the individual and group meanings created through people's experience and intentions in regards to the place. These aspects will be integrated in the beginning of the framework to tackle placelessness. Vandalism is the willful or malicious destruction of public or private property. There are 4 reasons why people vandalize: to go against specific individuals or institutions, as a result of general boredom or frustration, where intent is for a specific cause, and to do enough damage to get caught. Surprisingly, vandalism is committed by the young and starts at a young age. This stems from children not being able to express themselves, release energy, and socialize in a comfortable environment. Consequences include the creation of hazards, safety concerns, and blight, expensive costs in maintaining, repairing, replacing, and removing, and the degradation of facilities and property, lowering value. Vandalism comes from a form of carelessness and indifference. If we can get children and people to be aware of their community, then we can begin to tackle vandalism. Along with standard vandalism mitigating strategies of durable parts and increased security, there are creative ways to go about making the playground safer. This includes turning activities considered to be vandalism into productive plays such as construction and art. We can also start to look at utilizing natural features and topographic forms as a way to facilitate play without building elements to vandalize. Majority of the public playgrounds in Hawaii are modular and the same in almost every community. There is no notion of sense of place anymore. Common features include plastic slides, steel jungle gyms with climbing apparatus lookouts, and small bridges on a rubber surface pad in the middle of a grass field. On the right, the first two are playgrounds in Hawaii that are good examples, and the rest are playgrounds located around the world with unique aspects to learn from. For example, the Bugga 05 playground creates a play environment with only color and topography, and the Be Mine playground integrates play equipment and forms with historical context and the utilization of natural landscape. Moving on to the framework. The framework comes from creating a sense of place, instilling community pride and responsibility, creating the necessary elements for a fun and productive play environment, and securing the playground through innovative ways, looking at long-term design solutions. With these elements combined, this will create a successful playground. I will not be going through the framework in detail, but I will highlight the structure and the broader components. There are 5 points to set the scene for this framework. It is a kit of parts to study, pick, and reinvent accordingly. It is meant to be easy for designers and non-designers to follow along. It tackles placemaking in the beginning and implements innovative security after going through the playground necessities. It helps to design playgrounds that are site-specific and meaningful for the community and children, and it is not meant to be a standalone guide and should be designed alongside other guidelines. The frameworks work in a way that is linear but also cyclical, ensuring that the design process references back to all stages of research and design. The framework flow looks at the outer context of the site, identifying, brainstorming, and visualizing the context around the playground. Next, it moves into the playground design itself, making sure all necessary elements are there and looking at the design without other guidelines and standards just yet. Then it moves into the playground security, going back and forth on what was designed and adjusting it to be secure in innovative ways. Last is a reflection that allows the designer to step back, look at what needs improvement, and go through the design process again. The framework begins with placemaking. At the macro scale, the city and neighborhood is researched, looking at anything from past, present, and future. This includes history, demographics, current developments, shared values, and so on. Challenges and opportunities are identified. At the micro scale, the site and the playground is researched and analyzed, going through a similar process as the city and neighborhood with more site-specific research and analysis. Identity is then looked at, pulling ideas from what has been researched on so far. The images at the bottom show possible ways of taking research and brainstorming ways they could be integrated into the playground. A unique identity can be found, and the designer can use this as the start of their playground design. Community input is highly recommended, and partnerships should be researched and put into the design proposal as supplementary information. The next part of the framework looks at the playground. First off is identifying the typology you are aiming to design for. This will guide the material choice and layout of the playground and the type of equipment and form used to facilitate play. This is subject to change throughout the design process. Next is going through the basic design elements. There is layout, materiality, entrance and signage, pathways and circulation, fences and enclosures. The images at the bottom help the designer think about the basic ways of going about the design process, while still being open to other ideas. For example, there are different ways to think of fences and enclosures, aside from wire fences and typical walls. The designer could consider low seating walls, wooded style fences, or hedges. Continuing with elements, there are trees, gardens and vegetation, shading, gathering and assembly, ground cover and surfacing, natural features, and water and sand. These are elements that create the basis of the playground itself. The designer should think about accessibility, looking at the differently abled, age groups, and age separation. Below are different play equipment and forms to consider for different age groups. Then the designer can have fun with this part, looking at the different play types and play verbs to incorporate. Having this set up allows the designer to have more freedom and creativity in designing the actual play equipment and form. The last part of this section is risk management, looking at age rangeability, danger hazard prevention, which starts to refer back to ASTM and other standards, and partnerships to incorporate. Then the designer dives into innovative security. This starts off with looking at durable materials and assembly and installation of playground equipment and forms. Comfort is then implemented into the design as a comfortable play environment creates an activated space. This looks at rest areas, shading, and vegetation. For example, shading creates cooler areas for children and people, allowing the people to spend more time at the playground and making it an enjoyable place to be in. Then it goes into layout, looking at prospect, signage and labeling, vehicular circulation, pedestrian circulation, and programming. For example, the designer should consider moving main pedestrian circulation away from the playground or create a buffer between the play area and heavy traffic areas. This section then looks at ways the designer can take what they have so far and implement creative vandalism into their design if it hasn't been done so already. This would be the time to start manipulating landscapes and adjusting play elements to be outlets for creative expression. The last part would be maintenance, looking at supervision, routine inspection, partnerships, and record keeping and surveys. Finally, the designer would go through the reflection and recommendations, looking at community client feedback, compiling all non-design related program recommendations, and questioning what they have designed so far. It is recommended to go through the process again, evolving what has been designed until satisfaction is reached, ready to move on to the next phase of playground design. I created a matrix based off my research and framework that evaluate playgrounds based on placemaking, innovative security, and playground necessities. A score of 1 to 2 means the playground needs major improvement. A score of 3 means the playground is okay but could be better. A score of 4 or 5 means the playground is in a good place. From the playgrounds I looked at from around the world, playgrounds are arguably better, but could do a lot better in creating sense of place and implementing innovative security. Playgrounds across Hawaii are few and could be improved in all aspects. Public playgrounds on Oahu are abysmal and need to relook at the way they are designing for our keiki. The checklist, along with the detailed guideline in my thesis, creates a preliminary design for playground designers that is supported with research and drawings. Creating a sense of place and security strategies are thought through at the beginning, creating a stronger proposal before moving on to the agency, company, or organization being used for the rest of the design process. Public playgrounds are the only places in the community dedicated to our children. These are amazing places that facilitate their development and create a place for them to gather, have fun, and be a kid with everyone else. Playgrounds can inspire children in arts and sciences, in nature and the built environment, and to be problem solvers and community-oriented citizens. Ultimately, playgrounds are for our children, and our children are our future. This concludes my presentation. Mahalo everyone, and questions and comments are welcome. Thank you.